Good morning, everyone. We are convening the Committee on Labor and Government Operations. It is Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. Happy Valentine's Day. 9:30 a.m., conference room 309. My Vice Chair will be running the testimony today. Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Appreciate the opportunity today. Just a couple of housekeeping notices before we proceed with the hearing today. We do have an 11:15 excuse me, 11:15 joint agenda with Water and Land Committee, so we are going to have to do our best to adjourn this committee prior to that joint hearing. Let's see. So for those of you who are on Zoom, we just ask that you keep yourself muted and your video off while waiting to testify, and after your testimony is complete. The Zoom chat function will allow you to chat with the technical staff only, so please use the chat only for such technical issues. If you are disconnected unexpectedly, you may attempt to rejoin the meeting. If disconnected while presenting testimony, you may be allowed to continue if time permits. Please note that the House is not responsible for any bad internet connections on the testifier's end. And lastly, in the event of a network failure, it may be necessary to reschedule the hearing or schedule a meeting for decision-making. In that case, an appropriate notice will be posted. So with that, we will begin with our first bill, HB 339 HD1, relating to exemptions from civil service for positions in the Department of Human Services. First up, we have Director Kathy Betts from DHS.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kathy Betts, Director for the Department of Human Services. You have our written testimony before us on exempt positions. We are requesting the exempt positions to the Director's office so that we can continue to innovate, leverage federal funds, and continue our IT modernization efforts that we've been undertaking for the last 8 years or so. Also in my written testimony of note, I believe, is we are one of the largest departments with only one deputy presently. We oversee nearly $4 billion in funds and over 80 statewide offices. We have been able to carry our staff and our workload throughout the pandemic, but we are experiencing a human services workforce shortage across the continent. It's something that's impacting us here too, so you will note that we do have some vacancies. However, we are aggressively trying to fill those in whatever way that we can, and we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director. Next, we have Ms. Farrington Brakey from the University of Hawaii, Hawaii Family Support Institute in support. Not here. Committee members will just note we also have testimony and support from Parents and Children Together, Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks, the Domestic Violence Action Center, Catholic Charities Hawaii, and the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence, as well as 2 individuals. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify? All in support, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Anyone else here wishing to testify? Anyone on Zoom? No? Okay, members, any questions on House Bill 339? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the next bill, HB 1086. First up, we have the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations in support. Good morning, Director.
Good morning and happy Valentine's Day, Chair Matayoshi, Vice Chair Garrett, and honorable members of the Labor and Government Operations Committee. Thank you for hearing this Governor's package proposal that conforms the Workforce Development Council law with the conflict of interest provisions and nomenclature found in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act and corresponding federal regulations. This measure also conforms the WDC law with the state budget and current program structure. It also repeals the requirement for an annual report on the K-12 Agriculture Workforce Development Pipeline Initiative, last funded by the legislature in 2016 and 2017. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. That's all the written testimony we have. Anyone else here in person wishing to testify? Anyone on Zoom? No? Okay, members, any questions on House Bill 1086? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the next bill, House Bill 1087, relating to the wage and hour law. First up, we have DLIR, Director Butai. In support.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you for scheduling this administration measure to provide more workers with protections afforded by the minimum wage rates, overtime rates, and record-keeping requirements that exist for employers and employees. Without this amendment, an employer could schedule an individual to work unlimited hours and pay the worker a guaranteed monthly compensation of $2,000 without regard to additional compensation for overtime. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Up next, Democratic Party of Hawaii Labor Caucus, Mr. Bradshaw. In support.
Yes, thank you, Chair Matayoshi, Vice Chair Garrett, members of the committee, Jason Bradshaw, Chair Labor Caucus, also on behalf of Ironworker Stabilization Fund, on behalf of Uncle T. George Paris. We stand in strong support of this measure. Right now, the way the law is written that we believe is, unfortunately, right now with the $2,000 amount that's in the current statute, that is below the current minimum wage of $12 an hour. When calculated hourly, that would come out to $11.54 an hour that a salaried worker could potentially make. So we do think the amendment suggested by the Department of Labor is an acceptable solution, or we also think you could add it to where it keeps it pace with the minimum wage by adding language to ensure that as the minimum wage goes up to 14, 16, 18, that compensation amount will be equal to that amount. We do think that's also a good solution for this measure. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw. That's all the written testifiers we have scheduled at the moment. Committee will note we have testimony and support from several groups, including Rainbow Family 808, IATSC Local 665, the Hawaii Appleseed Center for Law and Economic Justice, the Democratic Party of Hawaii Education Caucus, EMUA Alliance, Hawaii State AFL-CIO, as well as several individuals. Anyone else here wishing to testify in person? It's House Bill 1087. Seeing none, anyone on Zoom? No? Okay, members, any questions on House Bill 1087?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Rep. Capella.
Thank you. For DLIR? Thank you so much. In the written testimony, a number of advocates have suggested closing the loophole in Section 387-1 by linking the exemption threshold in the definition of employee to the minimum wage rate. That way we won't face the same problems when the minimum wage is increased in the future. Is that something that DLIR would consider supporting?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, that was my only question.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We'll proceed to the next bill, House Bill 1184, relating to procurement. First up, we have the State Procurement Office with comments.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Bonnie Kahakui. The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony providing comments and recommendations. We believe our recommendations for amended language would fulfill the intent of the law without making it more burdensome. Thank you. Available for questions.
Thank you. Up next, the Department of Accounting and General Services, Comptroller. In support? Not present. We do have late testimony from the Department of Transportation. In support.
Thank you, Vice Chair Garrett, Chair Matayoshi, and members of the committee. Tammy Lee, Acting Deputy Director for the Department of Transportation. We stand in support of this measure. There have been a couple of instances within the past couple of years where we have a solicitation or a notice for professional service providers, for design consultants. And a few times, one time in particular, we advertised 3 times for professional services, and each time we receive 2 statements of qualifications, which doesn't allow us to move forward with a contract. Thank you. I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Up next on Zoom, we have the County of Kauai Department of Finance.
Good morning, Chair and Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ernie Barrera. I am the Procurement Chief for the County of Kauai. Thank you for the opportunity to appear and testify. I stand in support of House Bill 1184 as the County of Kauai as well. I will stand on written testimony previously submitted to the committee and avail myself for questions if there are any with regard to my testimony. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrera. Also on Zoom, we have the American Council of Engineering Companies with comments. Mr. Kaneshiro?
Not present on Zoom.
Not present. Thank you very much. That's all the people we have scheduled to testify. We'll note that we do have support, comments and, testimony and support from the University of Hawaii. And testimony in opposition from the American Institute of Architects, as well as Kawahikawa and Chun Architects. Oh, please.
I stand on my opposing testimony.
Okay, thank you very
I'll
much.
answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I failed to mention this at the beginning, but if you are going to stand on your testimony, we just ask that you come to the microphone so the people on Zoom can hear.
Yes, thank you. My name is Daniel Chun, and I stand on my opposing testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chun. Okay, anyone else here present wishing to testify on this measure? House Bill 1184. Anyone else on Zoom? No? Okay, members, any questions? Chair?
SPO, please. Procurement Office.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chair.
Are there currently any rules or guidelines or methodology in place to handle less than 3? I mean, if we allow this, should there be additional rules set in place on what to do if there's 2 or 1 or none, or do you already have that in place?
We don't have it in place because of the Asato case. The only time you can rank less than 3 would be if it's under the small purchase threshold, which is 100,000. So our language would allow for, if you have less than 3, then the alternative, go to the chief procurement officer and ask for an alternative procurement. Alternatively, we could also ask that they do a request for exemption to allow for the less than 3, and we would have to write rules for that.
Okay, would you want these rules to be, should we be putting it in this bill already to make sure that those rules are set in place, or should we leave it to you folks?
If you put it in the bill pursuant to the rules established by the Procurement Policy Board, I think that would suffice.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the next bill. House Bill 1203 relating to taxation. This is a child care tax credit bill. First up, we have the Department of Taxation, Director Suganuma with comments. Or his representative.
Okay, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Kathy Davenport. I'm on here on behalf of the Department of Taxation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. The department stands on their written testimony and providing comments, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have the Department of Human Services, Director Betts with comments. Or representative.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Scott Nagasoni with Department of Human Services. Department stands on its written testimony offering comments, and I'm here to help answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next, we have the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii in support.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Trevor Arizua with the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii. We've been working on this issue throughout the interim with our members, and the business community wants to be a part of the solution on the childcare problem and to solve the childcare issue, but also the workforce participation issue. Childcare issues is the #1 red tape in the way, or #1 burden for people getting back into the workforce. And we think states are incentivizing businesses, as well as the federal government, to incentivize employers to offer childcare as an employee benefit. So currently, the federal government offers up to 25% to pay for the cost for businesses to offer it. And 18 states now have either matched that or gone above and beyond the 25% to help employers give child care benefits to their employees. Now, this bill covers child care sponsored, so either they could use that benefit and take it to a qualified child care facility or build it on their premises. So the Chamber is in strong support of this bill. The business community wants to be a part of the solution, and thank you, Chair, for hearing the bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next on Zoom, we have the Tax Foundation of Hawaii offering comments.
Yes, good morning, Chair, members of the committee. This is Jade McMillan on behalf of the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We will stand on our written comments submitted on the measure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all the written testimony we have today. Committee will note we also have testimony and support from the Hawaii Women Lawyers, the Maui Chamber of Commerce, and an individual. Anyone else here wishing to testify? House Bill 1203. Seeing none, anyone on Zoom? Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? House Bill 1203. Okay, we'll proceed to the next bill, House Bill 1353, relating to unemployment insurance. First up, DLIR. Director Butai, in support.
Aloha, Chair. We support this measure that appropriates money to support the administration of the UI program. The UI program intends to use the appropriation to support 15 vacant federally unfunded positions that will be used to ensure service levels to the community remain constant. The $36 million will supplement the costs associated with procuring vendor and modernizing the UI system, which is also approved under Governor Green's supplemental executive budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director. He was the only in-person testifier scheduled. The committee will note we also have testimony and support from Transform Hawaii government, as well as one individual. Anyone else here in person wishing to testify? House Bill 1353. Seeing none, anyone on Zoom? Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to the next bill, House Bill 1352. I don't believe we have any testifiers on this bill. Okay, anyone in person here wishing to testify on House Bill 1352? Director Butai, DLIR.
We submitted testimony, Vice Chair, but maybe the postman on the internet went on strike, so but I'll just basically we appreciate the intent of this measure to establish a voluntary work sharing program that would allow a worker who is unemployed for a portion of the week to collect unemployment benefits. Under work sharing, an employer elects to avoid layoffs by reducing the number of regularly scheduled hours of work for all or a group of employees. However, some claimants would earn less under a short-time compensation program than under the pre-existing benefits available through partial unemployment. And in addition, and due to the current Hawaii Unemployment Insurance Modernization Project, the department would not be able to meet the criteria to qualify for a federal grant at this time to implement the program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
And
Director.
we'll give you our hard copy of our testimony.
Okay, thank you very much. And just to confirm, you're providing comments?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Wait, Jay.
Okay, any members, any questions? Chair?
So just to be clear, and I wanted to emphasize this, the department is in favor of this program, but because of our ancient UI system that needs upgrades, we can't apply for the 100 million or so that's up in federal funding. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
So if the UI system was upgraded as of right now, if we could snap our fingers, would DLIR be interested in pursuing this program?
Yeah, we would be, because right now we have a mainframe base that is very fragile. If we add new requirements or add additional applications, it would probably crash. And so.
Okay, gonna remind you that in 4 years. Thanks, Jay.
Okay, thank you, Director. Okay, members, any other questions? House Bill 1352. Seeing none, we will proceed to the next bill, House Bill 1471, relating to Telework. First up is the Department of Taxation with comments.
Good morning again. My name is Kathy Davenport. Thank you for the testimony. Department stands with our written testimony, providing comments, and I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next, via Zoom, we have the Tax Foundation of Hawaii with comments.
Yes, good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Jane McMillan on behalf of the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We will stand again on our written comments. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all the testimony we have on House Bill 1471. Anyone else here wishing to testify in person? Anyone else on Zoom? Seeing none. Members, any questions? House Bill 1471. Chair?
You can always go to other people first, too.
Okay.
Dotex.
Okay.
So I think in your testimony you implied that this was not a very prevalent problem, but could you expand a little bit on that? How many people are we expecting to cover under this measure?
Right now, we're looking only really a small specific population of non-residents.
Can you ballpark it? Are we talking like 10,
Right
100,
now, yeah,
1,000?
we're not sure 100%. It's kind of an indeterminate because we're not really 100% sure of who exactly was here working for services until like their tax returns come in. So.
But can you ballpark it for us? Because it's hard to say
Yeah.
that in your testimony that it's low if you don't even know
Yeah,
anything.
we do have a revenue impact, but right now it's just showing as indeterminate because we have to go through it. So I can go back to the department and we can get you the answers and then I can have it sent to the committee.
Okay. I'm inclined to kind of keep this moving forward if you don't
Yeah.
have a good answer to this, though.
Yeah. It's just, it is a very indeterminate number.
So
Yeah.
it could be huge.
It could be huge.
Okay.
But we're not sure because this is right before the actual, that enactment of the the COVID that they did on that March 3rd.
So when is
March
that
4th.
gonna?
Huh?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it's
Okay.
everything prior to that March 4th, 2020 date. So
Mhm.
it's, we have to determine it, it's very hard because when we get the income tax returns, we get their, we have it that they have their wages or, things, but it doesn't specifically, we can try to look at how much was here, but to determine because of that March date for the whole 2020 year is hard.
So you're saying in March you'll
That,
know,
because
you'll know
when
better.
they did the, when he signed that bill for that COVID, so.
Is there a date in the near future that you'll have a better, more concrete answer?
I'm gonna have to say it's gonna be hard because we don't really know when we look even at, we would have to approach almost a lot of the non-residents who's saying their services are here. And then we have to find out if they were here doing the services for the specific contracts and things, that they had to be here. And they were, it's a very different thing because we don't obtain all the information on the tax returns as like what you were asking for, like how many of them were actually not teleworking, they're teleworking somewhere else doing their services when they were performing the services here prior.
Okay. And
Yeah.
other testimony raised federal concerns. Do you share those federal concerns, or do you think they're unfounded?
Right now, we don't think that there is really a federal concern right now, but it has to be, dwelled upon later because of the fact that these people are, they were doing the services here and then they went away to out of state to perform services.
Okay. This bill hits Finn next. I'm assuming they're going to be asking similar questions. So
Yeah.
you've got
Yeah,
until then, I think, to try to figure
this
some of this
is,
stuff out. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Members, any other questions? House Bill 1471. Seeing none, we'll proceed to the next bill, House Bill 335, relating to Department of Education procurement. First up, we have the Department of Education in support. Deputy Superintendent.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Kurt Otuguro, Deputy Superintendent, testifying on behalf of Superintendent Hayashi and the department. We stand on the department stands on its written testimony in support. There are changes that occur every day at the school level, and so this bill, if passed, would provide them with much more efficiency by increasing the limits for procurement. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have the State Procurement Office with comments.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Bonnie Kahakui, State Procurement Office. You have our lengthy comments, but I would like to point out a few things. The Chief Procurement Officer or Superintendent already has the ability to grant exemptions on a case-by-case basis. In addition to that, based on the language of the law, we believe that the law should be applied uniformly and not to specific departments. Based on the language, we believe it will not be transparent. It will not give vendors equal opportunity to participate in some of these activities that the DOE is proposing. It will be less efficient. It will lead to parceling, and it will actually lead to be more labor intensive. So for that reason, we oppose this bill. Thank you. Open to questions.
Thank you very much. That's all we have scheduled to testify in person. Anyone else here in the room wishing to testify? Seeing none. Anyone on Zoom? No? Thank you. Members, any questions? House Bill 335. Chair?
DOE, do you want to respond to State Procurement Office? I know this idea originated with you folks for CTE, a CTE exemption.
Yes, thanks, Chair. The State Procurement Office or Chief Procurement Officer is correct. The superintendent does have exemption powers on a case-by-case basis. So if this measure is not passed, we would do it one by one. I think the whole nexus of this is really at the school level. The legislature actually appropriates funds, small funds, for each school to do their own construction, school-initiated projects. Very unique than any other state agency that we have. And so by allowing the school to have that autonomy to actually procure for these small types of jobs and purchase of equipment, it makes them more nimble and much more efficient to do it at that level without having to go through the process. And the process works, but it's just because they have the ability to do certain things that other agencies don't, this law would provide that.
So it sounds like because you do have the exemption already under the current system, if we didn't change anything, the status quo would be, this bill would be in effect enacted anyway. So it's not, I guess my point is, it doesn't seem to be any more or less fair to other vendors to pass this because the current state of things is that you already have the ability to exempt these things. It would just be more cumbersome, is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. The superintendent is unable, well, he cannot delegate that exemption authority to anybody else but himself. So in essence, it would be a cumbersome process administrative to administer that.
But a power that you already possess is my point.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Procurement Office? My question has to do with the e-procurement system. Can this, some of your complaints were that this process was not through the e-procurement system. Now, I profess I know nothing about it. Is it possible to just put this system into the e-procurement system as well? Or this exemption into the e-procurement system?
The exemption
or what's the...
So
is it possible to streamline this bill's process at all, I guess, through that system?
Well, let me make one clarification about, you had mentioned about the vendors not having equal opportunity. When there is an exemption, the CPO is required to post that exemption for a minimum of 7 days so that other vendors or vendors and general public has the opportunity to weigh in on whether the Chief Procurement Officer can approve it or not. So it's a little bit different. The exemption that, if you blanket exemption, nobody will know about it except for the school itself. The exemption that the CPO has, there are steps that he has to take before he gives his approval. As far as the e-procurement system, we do have an e-procurement system. We use Hypro, and for small purchases, we believe that it's quick and easy. In fact, we offered Senator McKelvey an opportunity to look at that system. Basically, we said if you can fill in the blanks, you can do the e-procurement system, and it automatically goes out. Our concern is when there is no transparency, the schools will just pick whatever 3 vendors they feel like picking, or use the same vendors over and over again. In the e-procurement system, the emails go out automatically. Getting 3 quotes, that means they have to call on the phone, email, fax, whatever method that they use to call, and we believe that it'll actually be more burdensome, more time-consuming, and paper-intensive. In the e-procurement system, all of that is captured in the history, and they don't have to wait for the vendors to respond to them. As long as there has to be a due date, and they get a response or they don't get a response. And it also checks compliance automatically, which if you're exempting them, that means you're also exempting them from 103D 310C, which is requirements to be compliant with your tax laws, your registration.
So you disagree that this e-procurement system is cumbersome for CTE purchases?
I disagree that it's cumbersome. The executive department currently uses it for all small purchase over 15,000 to less than 100,000. And as of 2022, there was 1,300 that just the executive department did. A total of some of the participating jurisdictions. DOE does not use it for small purchases, but some of the other jurisdictions do. We did 1,346 small purchases. And so we find it a very easy and efficient way to do it.
But you have a huge department here basically telling you that they're about to use their exemption powers on every single one of these in a cumbersome way that I think you both agree would be cumbersome just to get around the system. I feel like something's broken here, admittedly. I fail to see, there seems to be some kind of disconnect is what I'm saying.
I agree. I don't know, the DOE uses a different e-procurement system. I only know what our e-procurement system does, and we feel that it's an easy application.
I didn't realize they used another one.
Yes, they do. So again, they use HEPS for some of I know they use HEPS for the construction. Their DOE procurement office does use HYPRO for some of their IFBs and RFPs, and we can certainly reach out to them and ask them, what they feel about it, but they are using our system. So
would you feel better if there was a 7-day public notice at least before they purchased this or before they entered into a contract?
That would be, if there's going to be an exemption, that's what it currently says, is they have to be posted for a minimum of 7 days.
Right.
But again, we're going back to.
But we'll cut out all of the paperwork. Anyway, why don't you guys talk?
Okay.
And I'll talk to you during recess.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair. Members, any other questions? House Bill 335? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the next bill, House Bill 846, relating to teachers. This is regarding the Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact. First up, we have the Department of Education with comments.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Kurt Otaguro, Deputy Superintendent, testifying on behalf of Superintendent Hayashi and the department. We stand on our written testimony with comments. We will defer to the Hawaii Teachers Standard Board for the implementation should this bill pass. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Superintendent. Up next, the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board in opposition.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Felicia Villalobos. I'm the Executive Director for the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board. Here on behalf of the board, standing on our testimony in opposition, and we outline the reasons in our testimony, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next, the Hawaii Association for Justice with comments.
Evan Oy on behalf of the Hawaii Association.
Just so the people on Zoom can hear you.
No problem. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Evan Oy on behalf of the Hawaii Association for Justice. We stand on our written comments. We appreciate the intent of this bill. However, we do have some concerns with the immunity provisions in Section G1 of the measure. I think it's a little overbroad and would raise some concerns for our residents. So, happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members will also note we have testimony and support from the U.S. Department of Defense, Military, Community, and Family Policy Division. That's everyone we have scheduled to testify. Anyone else in the room wishing to testify in person? Seeing none. Anyone on Zoom? Seeing none. Members, any questions? House Bill 846.
I've got a question.
Chair?
Evan. You made an interesting point about qualified immunity in your, and one I kind of am inclined to agree with, but is it possible to remove qualified immunity and still participate in this compact?
We cannot speak to whether a removal of a section would remove us from the compact. I think we just wanted to note, I think there's several compact measures moving through, and we just want to make sure that if the immunity provisions are in there, there are concerns for our local residents. I can't speak to it if it removes us from the compact.
Does anyone here know whether the compact requires the immunity provision to be in place? Please. And the reason I ask this is because I assume that all parts of all parts of a certain model legislation would need to come through before we could be part of it. Is the qualified immunity provision one of them?
The compact has to stay as is. So each state, this is going through all the different states right now, the compact cannot change, cannot be amended or revised, it has to stay as is. So whatever's in the compact right now, currently, needs to stay in the compact. That's what I was told, informed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Hawaii Association for Justice, just so we have your testimony reflected correctly, you do say in your written testimony you're providing comments, but then you proceed to say you're opposed to it. So for the record, you're in opposition?
Our comments are, we don't want to directly oppose the measure because we understand the need for the compact. Our comments are limited to just the immunity provision.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Okay, members, any other questions? House Bill 846. Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to the next bill. House Bill 250, HD1, relating to farm-to-school procurement. First up, we have the Hawaii Department of Agriculture in support. Don't see them present. Next up, Department of Education with comments.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. Kurt Otuguro, Deputy Superintendent. The department stands on its written testimony with comments. We've discussed this before. We are absolutely in favor of anything that we can do to expand our food services throughout the system. There are always concerns about capacity, certifications, and things of that nature when we do a geographic decentralization. And so, but we're here to answer any questions that you may have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next, the Hawaii Public Health Institute in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. My name is Dennis Chase, and I am the program manager of the Farm to School HUI, which represents over 60 organizations around the state concerned with farm to school issues, and we are housed under the Hawaii Public Health Institute. I'd like to testify in strong support of this bill. Basically, there are over 7,000 farmers in the state, and a lot of them have questions or concerns about the procurement methods for getting food into the Department of Education and other state institutions and schools. And we believe that this bill would help to streamline that process and make it easier for them to get the local food in the schools. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chase. Up next, Ulupono Initiative in support.
Good morning, Vice Chair Garrett, Chair Matayoshi, members of the committee. Micah Munikata here on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. We'd like to stand in our testimony supporting this bill. We just view this measure to be another tool in the toolbox. The DOE's got some ambitious goals that they need to meet. Some great legislation passed in 2021, around 30% by 2030. And a lot of our other institutions, 50% by 2050. Again, if we can try to find ways to get some of our local food into these meal programs as soon as possible, that would be great. We do find geographic preference to be a good step in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That's all the people we have scheduled to testify in person. Anyone else here wishing to testify? Okay, committee members, please note we have several other pieces of testimony in support from the Hawaii Primary Care Association, the North Shore Economic Vitality Partnership, the Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action, Malama Kauai, Ka'ohana o Napua, Hawaii Farm Bureau, 350 Hawaii, Center for Getting Things Started, Grow Some Food, Hawaii Farmers Union United, Chamber of Sustainable Commerce, the Kauai Climate Action Coalition, and several individuals. Members, any questions?
Yeah, I've got some questions, but.
The chair?
Yeah, I saw Randy Tanaka here earlier. Randy, are you outside? I know this is being piped outside too. Okay, DOE then, just generally.
He escaped.
He did, just in time. So I understand you guys are doing a centralized kitchen, which I think is great. I think it can really help. Do you, oh,
You've been summoned. Mr. Tanaka, please take the mic.
It's all timing, right, when you walk in the room. I'm sorry, the question is.
No, grand entrance. That's what we like. So I understand that we're doing the centralized kitchen, which I appreciate and I support. 2030 is coming up pretty fast, though, and you guys have a pretty high threshold to meet, 30% in the next 7 years or so. Do you have a strategic plan that you can share? Not now. Do you have a strategic plan that you could send the committee regarding how you intend to meet this goal by 2030?
I think it has to do with some of the cornerstones being in place before we get, we think it'll be a pretty steep curve when we get there. One of it is the central kitchen. So we can centralize the products, the local products coming to a place where we can produce it in under one roof instead of being spread all over the 290 schools that we have, including charters. The other thing is our kitchen facilities. I was just out in Waimea Elementary, and our walk-in freezers are in
So
pretty rough space.
I do understand. I know this committee is the hearing is dragging on. If you have a written plan or a timeline or something, do you have something in place that's written down that you could send us?
Yes.
Okay. And if you wouldn't mind doing that.
It's more of a roadmap than a plan, so this is where we are and this is how we're going to get there.
Okay, and does that plan include being able to properly procure from this food from farmers? Because as we both know, you can't snap your fingers and the plant is there. You have a lot of lead time. Do you have plans to do long-term ag contracts with farmers to get them directly from them, or are you using intermediary distributors that may not effectuate that purpose?
All of the above. For the neighbor islands, it's more the food hubs, and then for some on Oahu, it's the larger players that can produce the volume, i.e. Mahipono, i.e. Loon Farms, that can produce the volume. The challenge we're going to have is supply, right? And if they can't produce it, how it impacts whether we're going to get the food and what alternate course we have to take to get the food.
Okay, so you're looking at kind of a ramp up.
Correct.
So we might not see the progress until the central kitchen, but then you're anticipating a steep incline thereafter.
Once we get those cornerstones in place, we think it'll be a pretty quick ramp. And it's still dependent upon farms being food safe certified. Of the 7,000, I think there's only a handful that are food safe certified. So we got to help them get to that place. And I think there's a bill moving forward to help them get to that place.
Okay, when is the central kitchen expected to be completed?
3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Members, any other questions? House Bill 250. Seeing none, we'll just note we have 3 bills remaining and about an hour left to our joint hearing with Water and Land Committee. Next up is House Bill 1202, relating to paid sick leave. Up first, we have Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, Director Butai with comments.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Although the department appreciates the intent of this measure, we offer comments. This measure assigns significant new responsibilities to the department without an appropriation or staffing. In addition, some of the leave benefits conflict with the pre-existing benefits in labor law, the Prepaid Healthcare Act, the Temporary Disability Insurance Law, and Hawaii Family Leave Law. Therefore, we suggest a formal study by a non-executive branch research agency, including an actuarial component with staffing estimates is prudent before statutory changes or additions are made. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Up next with comments, Subcontractors Association of Hawaii. Not seeing them present. Up next with comments, the Hawaii Workers Center.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair. Sergio Alcubilla with the Hawaii Workers Center. We stand on our written testimony offering comments for this bill. And again, our preference is for HB 235 as a stronger bill to provide sick leave for workers. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next via Zoom, Retail Merchants of Hawaii in opposition. Not present. Thank you very much. Okay, members, and just in the interest of time, we'll note that we have several pieces of testimony either in support or with comments, as well as some in opposition. Is there anyone else here in person wishing to testify?
Thank you, Chair Matayoshi, Vice Chair Garrett, members of the committee, Jason Bradshaw. The Labor Caucus, I just want to make it clear, we stand in strong support of a strong paid sick leave bill for the state of Hawaii. For this version, we're asking to offer comments, and part of that reason is we believe that we can get to a stronger sick leave bill with some of the comments that we're offering and some of the amendments we're suggesting. One, we'd like to see the tiered approach eliminated to have an equal policy across the board for all workers. So all workers, regardless of where they work, earn the same amount of paid sick days. We want to see the accrual rate go from 1 from every 40 hours worked to 1 to every 30 hours worked. We also want to ensure that working families can be able to take it to care for their children or their grandparents or their family members who are ill. Oftentimes, working families struggle to be able to find someone to take care of their child when they're sick, and this bill right now doesn't allow that family leave component in there, so we want to ensure that a working parent can be able to use it if their child is ill. So we are seeking that amendment as well. And ideally up to 7 days of accrued paid sick days per year that we think is valuable for working families in Hawaii. Just to stress, in Hawaii, over 180,000 workers do not have access to paid sick leave. That is a significant portion of the working population. That's all in the private sector workforce. They come from the restaurant industry, the retail industry. They're the majority of workers who don't have access to paid sick leave in Hawaii. They're the ones that are engaging with the public. They're the ones that are cooking our food. They're the ones handling our food. They're the ones serving the public. And they're the ones oftentimes struggling to make ends meet in the state of Hawaii. Many of them are low-wage workers, unable to take a day off from work when they are sick. And so they do attend work often sick, unfortunately, because a day off without pay is a day without groceries or a day without being able to afford their rent. And we think that it's important that we can actually get a few paid sick days a year so workers can recover at home, do well, and to be able to get back to work and actually have higher productivity. So thank you for the opportunity to testify, offering comments, but in strong support of a strong sick leave bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bradshaw. My apologies, I failed to mention Hawaii Children's Action Network in support.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I did submit my testimony quite late.
Yes, we have it. My apologies.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks also supports paid sick days, but we have suggested amendments to this bill, some along the lines of Jason Bradshaw's. We definitely want to emphasize the need for adding care of children and parents to this bill, for working parents especially, and that's what most states do have in their paid sick days bills. Also, the cutoff for employees to get the full amount of sick days is 50 employees in this bill. If you look at the U.S. Census data of small businesses, 91% of firms in Hawaii have less than 50 employees. So that's really making it harder for a lot of employees, and employees get sick no matter what. It doesn't matter how large their employer is, so we would recommend eliminating that differentiation between the firm sizes. We cite a Bank of Hawaii study from a few years ago, right before the pandemic. It showed that less than half of leisure and hospitality workers here in Hawaii have paid sick days. As Jason said, those are the folks who are serving our food, who are in the faces of their customers and clients. So it's very important for our public health. We've learned from the pandemic. It's very important for people to be able to take time off and get paid. And the last thing is also the accrual rate, allowing workers to get their paid sick time a little faster. 1 hour for every 30 hours worked is the most common rate among the other states that have paid sick days laws. And finally, I cite in our testimony some studies of other states that have had already passed and they're running paid sick days laws. They've seen that after the law is implemented, business owners like the law. They find that their workers are more productive, they have less turnover. and that there's no hit on business growth or economic growth in the jurisdictions that have had paid sick days versus the ones right next to them that don't. So we support paid sick days, but we hope you'll take some of our amendments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wu. Is there anyone else here present wishing to testify? Anyone via Zoom? Seeing none, thank you. Members, any questions? House Bill 1202.
Oh, Chair.
Yes, Rep. Capella.
Democratic Party Labor Caucus, Mr. Bradshaw.
Hi, Representative.
Thank you for your testimony and thank you for your work on this issue. I know you've been working on paid sick leave for a number of years now. This
Too
is not,
long.
Yes, this is not the first time
Yeah.
we've heard bills like this. This is also, I think, not the first time we've heard tiered proposals as well. Has anything like this ever been proposed and then, or suggested before, and in the past, what was the result?
We did have a sick leave bill that was gaining some traction, I want to say 6-7 years ago, that we were pushing. And part of some of the amendments in that sick leave bill was a tiered approach. Now, it was certain employers would have sick leave, certain employees would have sick leave, and some wouldn't have sick leave at all. So that was a tiered approach. It did not go well. At the end of the day, when advocates found out about that language, there was some op-eds written, there was a lot of emails sent informing members in this building at that time that they were against that sick leave bill. So we thought we had something moving, but at the end of the day, people weren't able to get on the same page on it, and then the bill ultimately died because they thought it should be a stronger sick leave bill, which it should be, but at that time, that's what happened then, yeah.
Thank you. Chair, can I ask a follow-up?
Please proceed.
One of the things that we're seeing that we saw in DLIR's testimony is that this seems overly complicated, right? But at its core, sick leave is about ensuring that people who are sick have the opportunity to take time off to get better, so that they don't become a public health emergency, making other individuals sick while they're at their job. This is something that strengthens business. We're also not the first people to do this. So there are other states who have accomplished sick leave.
Yeah.
So do you have any comment to DLIR about that? That it's really not that complicated?
No, it shouldn't be complicated. Over 11 states, 11 states have sick leave. A lot of municipalities and cities have sick leave. They've enacted paid sick leave laws already currently in place. And pretty much every developed country has a paid sick leave program in place. What we're seeking is to be similar to the other states that have paid sick leave. It's an employer mandate. Employers would provide paid sick leave to their workers, similar to like you make sure they're getting paid minimum wage, right? So I can see where the Department of Labor might be suggesting that they might need some additional staff for enforcement purposes, because maybe there's a possibility they might get some additional complaints because maybe an employer is not providing the paid sick leave like it should be in the law. But it would be, I think, on the enforcement side. At least the way I look at it is this, we do have TDI, temporary disability. But that is an insurance program that has a 7-day waiting period that provides 58% of your income for the purpose of generally longer illnesses, potentially if you have something like cancer or some other long-term illness. That's what I think TDI is meant to be for. What we're asking for is 7 or whatever the number is going to be that ultimately the legislature decides for short-term illness that is used for, you wake up with the fever, you wake up with a cold, even COVID for that matter, you can stay at home and get paid for a couple of the days that you're sick so you can recover at home and not spread it to the public or your coworkers. So that's the purpose of that. But I do think implementation can be fairly easy. I mean, in a sense, they could create a poster like they do minimum wage that would say this is what you're entitled to as far as your benefit is concerned when you're working at wherever you're working. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any other questions? House Bill 1202. Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to the next bill, House Bill 1205, relating to collective bargaining. First up, we have the University of Hawaii Professional Assembly in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair Debbie Hartman for Kristen Fern, University of Hawaii Professional Assembly. We stand on our testimony in strong support and are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, please note we also have testimony and support from the Hawaii Government Employees Association. Anyone else here in person wishing to testify? Anyone on Zoom? Seeing none. Members, any questions? I have a question for UPA.
I'd like to introduce Dwight Catano, just in case your
Sure.
question, whichever one.
Okay, have you thought about how you would determine what the fair share might be for a non-union member in terms of services? Would it be like a set rate, an hourly rate?
Well, that would be to be determined. I guess the option is that you can you can go for membership, which would then, you would not be assessed any of the charges. But, each case as it progresses forward, as well as into arbitration, if it requires to adjudicate the grievance, can range in different costs. So, what we're looking at is trying to find an equitable approach to provide just that issue of grievance representation to arbitration. But again, each case is complex and each case will be situational.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, members, we'll move on to our last bill, House Bill 1398, relating to collective bargaining. First up in person, the Department of Budget and Finance with comments.
Chair, Vice Chair, members, Neil Mejia for the department. We stand on our written comments. Just like to add, this is the fourth new unit that we've testified on at the legislature this session.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next, the Office of Collective Bargaining in opposition.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Brenna Hashimoto, the Chief Negotiator. We all rest on our written testimony in opposition to this measure, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have the Maui Police Department here in person? In support?
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Greg Okamoto, Assistant Chief with the Maui Police Department. Traveled over here on behalf of Chief John Pelletier and all our employees in support of our emergency services dispatchers as well as dispatchers across the state. Often when you call, well, not often, when you do call 911, the first person you speak to is not a police officer, it's not a fireman, it's not a medic, it's a dispatcher, and they often take on the role of the emergency worker. So they are the true first responders. For us, the Maui Police Department, we have 39 positions. However, only 12 seats are filled. That's 30%. So we're currently working at a 70% vacancy. So it's a 24-hour, 365-day operation. Last year alone, our dispatchers answered 163,774 administrative calls, in addition to 124,457 911 calls. So yeah, unfortunately, we live in paradise and there's a cost, and the wages do not adequately compensate our emergency services dispatchers for the work that they do. I think we just need to be competitive and be able to attract qualified applicants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you making the visit to Oahu. Okay, up next via Zoom, we have the Department of Defense, Mr. Kaneshige.
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Everett Kaneshige, the Statewide Interoperability Communications Coordinator for the Office of Homeland Security and the State Department of Defense. I'll stand on my written testimony in support of this measure, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, we have via Zoom, Honolulu Police Department, HPD, in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee. I am Captain Matthew Kurihara, the Honolulu Police Department, assigned to Communications Division, and we'll stand on our written testimony in support, and I'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's everyone we have scheduled to testify in person. Anyone else here wishing to testify? Anyone else via Zoom? Seeing none, we'll just note that we do have testimony in opposition from the City and County's Department of Human Resources, testimony and support from the Office of the Mayor of Maui County, and several individuals in support as well. Members, any questions? House Bill 1398. Seeing none, we will recess for decision-making.
Reconvening the Committee on Labor and Government Operations. It is still Tuesday, February 14th, 2023, in Conference Room 3009. We will be deciding on a number of bills today. First up, we've got HB 339 HD1 relating to exemptions from civil service for positions in the Department of Human Services. Members, Chair's recommendation is to adopt the DHS amendment and to defect the date to June 30th, 3000. Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 339 HD1. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Capella?
Aye.
Representative Martinez?
Aye.
Representative Sayama?
Aye.
Representative Tam?
Aye.
And Representative Alcos?
Aye.
Thank you, members. All members vote aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1086 relating to workforce development. This is a governor's package bill. We're just going to make tech amendments and defect the date to June 30th, 3000. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 1086. The Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the presence of all members. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1087 relating to the wage and hour law. We will be adopting the Democratic Party Labor Caucus amendment, linking this to the minimum wage and defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 1087. The Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or reservations? All members vote aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to HB 1184 relating to procurement. We are going to be we're going to be defecting the date to June 30th, 3000, making some tech amendments. The AIA's amendments for the AIA, we're going to be adopting the AIA's amendment, changing it to the appropriate subsection, and also changing the term State Procurement Office in the fourth line to Chief Procurement Officer. I will be noting, though, in the committee report that this might be excessive, that we may want to just leave it to the State Procurement Office to create their own rules. So, but I'll leave it to the next committee to decide that after proper testimony. Members, any questions or comments? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 1184. The Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, moving on to HB 1203 relating to taxation. We're going to be making tech amendments affecting the date to June 30th, 3000, and we will be adopting the DOE tax amendment to delete subsection F and renumbering the subsequent sections accordingly. Members, any questions or comments? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 1203. The Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, moving on to HB 1353 relating to unemployment insurance. We'll just be defecting the date, June 30th, 3000, blanking any appropriations amounts. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 1353. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1352. I really like this bill. I think this bill could have really been a boon to small businesses to not only give them some relief, but also to stop them from having to constantly retrain workers. Unfortunately, as DLIR testified, their system cannot handle it right now. I'm hoping in 3 to 4 years, if we're able to get them the resources they need to upgrade the UI system, then we can implement a similar program. Unfortunately, the federal funding lapses December 31st of this year. Hopefully, that federal funding will later be available. I'm hoping this comes back, but for now, we're going to be deferring this measure. Moving on to HB 1471 relating to telework, defecting the date June 30th, 3000. Members, any questions? Okay, I will be noting in the committee report as well that this may not be a very impactful bill. So I'm asking the next committee to look into the actual impact of this before hearing it. Vice Chair with the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 1471. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to HB 335 HD1 relating to Department of Education procurement. Just some technical amendments, defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 335 HD1, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to HB 846 HD1. This is the teacher compact bill. We will be making some technical amendments. Unfortunately, if we edit this bill too much, we might as well defer it. We'll keep it moving along for now. But in the committee report, I'm going to be asking the next committee to look into whether other states which have adopted this compact have run into any problems with qualified immunity. Members, any questions or concerns? Hearing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 846 HD1, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or with reservations?
Reservations.
Duly noted. Representative Capella.
Reservations.
Duly noted. Representative Tam. Anyone else with reservations? Chair, all remaining members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to HB 250 HD1 relating to farm to school procurement. The date's already defected, so we will be passing, the Chair's recommendation is to pass this one as is. Members, any questions or comments? You see none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 250 HD1, the Chair's recommendation is to pass unamended. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. So I think I said defecting the date for HB 335 HD1. I think the date's already defected, so you can ignore that. HB 1202 relating to paid sick leave. We're going to be defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. We will be exempting all public sector employees as this conflicts with collective bargaining. I will be adding a section that says that paid sick leave under this section cannot be used in conjunction with TDI or workers' compensation. We'll be adjusting the hours down from 200 to 80 hours a year in Section 2. And I am increasing the accrual rate from 40 for 1 hour to every 40 hours to 1 hour for every 30 hours. I'm also going to recommend that we eliminate the exemption for small businesses. I am a little concerned that small businesses are going to be unduly impacted by this. So I am going to ask the next committee in the committee report to look into this. This is admittedly a compromise bill. I know both sides are not happy with this bill, which usually is a sign of a good compromise, but I think that the cap and carryover for hours for small businesses, we're gonna eliminate that too. Any questions or comments? Okay, Vice Chair with the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 1202, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, next up is HB 1205 relating to collective bargaining. This is the Janus bill. We're going to be defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, if not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 1205, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next up, we have HB 1398 relating to collective bargaining. We'll be defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. I will note that in DHERD's testimony, they reference a report very recently, back in, I believe, 2021, that stated basically the conclusion of the report was that the salary ranges were correct. I'm a little hesitant to, I know this is a collective bargaining thing. We'll leave it up to them. There are a lot of bargaining unit bills coming through this year and last year, and I assume in the years to come. This chair's concern is that we are going to keep making new bargaining units until we have 100 bargaining units, and I do not want that. We need an objective rule for why one class of workers deserves a separate bargaining unit that applies to all workers, not just their particular class. Until I hear that rule, I am not inclined to make any new bargaining units. I am open to ideas. If you can come to me with an objective rule, and I've told all the other bargaining units this, if you can come to me with an objective rule that makes sense for everyone, I'll listen. but I have not heard that rule yet, and no one has taken me up on my offer. So I am going to keep this moving for the purposes of discussion, but unless I hear some kind of objective rule that makes sense, I'm just saying, I don't think this bill is going to move too far, but we'll keep it going for purposes of conversation. Defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 1398, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to the DM calendar, HB 167 relating to wages. We'll be defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. We're going to specify that liability under this measure shall not extend to consequential damages. To further make it clear that the general contractor's liability under this bill is limited to unpaid direct wages, page 1, line 15. We're going to be providing the court with the discretion to award reasonable attorney's fees and costs, including expert witness fees, which can be quite pricey, provided that these fees shall not be awarded against the general contractor for unpaid wages except for those of its direct employees. We'll be making it clear that notice of any potential wage liability to the general contractor and subcontractor under its employ be provided within 90 days of the work done and cannot be extended by work that may have been done later in the project contract. Providing strict time limits to bring an action pattern after similar lien statutes while avoiding contentious arguments on when those time limits start, and clarifying that the liability does not extend to penalties, consequential or liquidated damages, or any benefit, fringe, benefit, or contribution claims for consistency with subsection A. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, see none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 167, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. We are adjourned.
morning, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. This is our 11:15 agenda for Tuesday, February 14th, here in Conference Room 309. Thank you so much to Labor Chair Scott Matsuyoshi for allowing us to have this joint hearing for the Committee on Waterland and the Committee on Labor. First up, we have House Bill 203 relating to civil service, and we have testimony from DLNR.
The party stands on its written testimony and strong support.
Thank you, Mr. Downer. Next, we have testimony from Randy Pereira, HGA.
HGA stands on its testimony in strong opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Tevez. Okay, that's all the testimony we have on House Bill 203. Is there anyone who would like to else would like to testify? Okay, members, any questions?
Defer to your vice chair.
Rep. Morikawa.
Thank you. My question's DLNR. I've always had problems with exempt positions because of my past working in civil service way long ago. And I understand how you can create positions to be higher pricing and all of that, like HGA is saying. Why can't you do this to this kind of position? And because civil service offers protection, employee protection, obviously.
Okay. Thank you for that question. If these positions are classified, then DHERD will determine what the salaries are. There are some of our positions are similar to classified positions, and they are significantly below. They're classified as at salary rates significantly below the pay grades we were giving before the legislature gave us money to increase wages.
Yeah.
So we would no longer have the ability, that flexibility. There is, this idea, for example, that, well, the solution is you give the exempt people the salaries they deserve today, and then, classify them. They'll be able to say, no, we don't want to be classified. We want to stay exempt. But then when they leave that job, that position will be classified, and it'll be whatever that pay raise, whatever
But
that
it's
pay
still
rate
exempt
is.
from the union.
Right.
Which ultimately is the goal, which I have a problem with because I have always believed in employee protections.
Right.
So I've seen many more exempt positions come in through bills, and I know the objective is that you can hire anyone you want at whatever compensation, which makes it more attractive for the job, but that leaves them out of the union's touch, which I have an issue with. And I know that jobs can be classified to higher paid positions and still stay in the civil service status.
Well, I'm not. I don't want to. I don't want to be argumentative, but our experience is that's not true with the types of position we have. Right now, our senior archaeologists will be among the highest paid employees in the state who are not medical doctors. And I don't know how we're going to get DHERD to go along with that. I will also say that it's the department's policy and it's the division's policy to treat all employees alike, so that the civil service protections apply to exempt positions, to temporary positions, to even the 89-day hires. So, I understand that. And in fact, when this bill was originally drafted, not this bill, when 6E was drafted, all of the positions could be exempt. And then in 2015 or 2016, we supported changing those positions to civil service. And then the labor market changed. And it became all but impossible for us to recruit. So that's the reason we're asking for the exemption.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Morikawa. Vice Chair Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. For DLNR, so I see in your testimony you make note that you only have one vacancy out of a current staff of 41. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so does that not show that maybe you don't need the exempt positions then, because you are filling your positions at a fairly high rate?
Well, I don't believe it does, because we've filled a number of positions in the last 6 months that were should have been classified, except it takes so long to get through the classification process. We never completed it. Mm-hmm. But those individuals came in at the new higher rates, and so we have had a certain amount of success.
But it is very difficult, and without that flexibility in wages, it's going to be more difficult. And if I can give you an example, the woman who is today our architecture branch chief, hired her in 2015 as a staff member, as an architectural historian. She, after several years, she left, went to work on a PhD. She's now come back as the branch chief. When we hired her in 2015, we had 28 qualified applicants for her position as a staff, as a staff architectural historian. The position that we just advertised for an architectural historian, we got 1 applicant. And over the last 7 years, the number of the size of the applicant pool has consistently shrunk. It's even worse for archaeologists.
Okay, and just to confirm, it's my understanding that you cannot force a person who's currently in a civil service position into an exempt position. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, I have no idea what. I mean, we're not asking to exempt every position.
Sure.
Simply the positions that are currently exempt. So, if if the legislature establishes a position and it's something that is in a classified category, it goes into, it's a classified position. And I am not aware of anything that would authorize us to change the civil service position to exempt. So all of the exempt positions, and it's a minority. I'd have to go back and count, but I think of the 41 positions, I think we have 7 or 8 that are civil service.
Okay, so I'm sorry, so these are all new positions you're asking as to be classified as exempt, or these are conversions you're talking about?
So the positions that have not been converted are currently exempt, and they would remain exempt under this. And the most of the positions that were established last year would be exempt. There are only, of those positions, the 14 positions created last year by the legislature, only 2 of them are in classified categories.
Okay, now are those positions currently filled?
They are not. We're in the recruitment process for the exempt positions. We have to get the governor's approval before we can advertise. And those positions have been at BNF for several months, waiting for them to act on it.
So you have more than just 1 vacancy then?
Yeah, those 41 positions are the positions that existed before the approval of last year's budget. Yeah, so we currently have 14. Well, yeah, all of the new positions are still empty. So that's the 14 new positions in addition to the 1 in our existing budget.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Downer, appreciate it. We're going to move on to House Bill 1032, relating to the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. First, we have testimony from Administrator Barros from HIEMA on Zoom, or his representative.
Thank you, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. I am Adam Weintraub. I'm the communication director for HIEMA, appearing on behalf of Administrator Barros, who is in a conflicting meeting with the county EM administrators today. We present our testimony in support of HB 1032. I'm available for questions. I will state for context that some of your colleagues on the Senate side had some concerns about the companion bill. We have attempted to provide some additional information to make it clear that these are very specialized positions, and that we are hoping by this move to open the doors to quicker action for a highly competitive candidate pool. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Weintraub. Will you also be speaking on behalf of Major General Hara?
I believe he has another representative on the call in General Mitsuyoshi, I believe, is here for General Hara.
Okay, thank you. General Mitsuyoshi. General Mitsuyoshi, we can't hear you. Not working? How about Adam can stand in for you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of Neil, I can also state that the TAG is in support of this bill, and for many of the same reasons which we're advancing.
Mahalo, thank you so much. Okay, finally we have testimony from HGA.
In opposition, not to be a broken record, but in opposition.
Thank you very much. Members, I'm sorry, anyone else would like to offer testimony on House Bill 1032? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to the last bill on the agenda, House Bill 1183. This is relating to state parks, and first we have testimony from DLNR. Support?
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members. Alan Carpenter, Assistant Administrator with the State Parks Division. The department stands on its testimony in strong support. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Next, we have testimony from Chipper Wichman, Hui Maka Ainana O Makana on Zoom.
Very good. Thank you. You pronounced that very well. Aloha, committees. And I stand on my testimony as submitted. And because the Hui is really kind of at the point of the spear on this bill, I thought I'd make myself available should you have any questions about our current relationship with state parks and our mutual, I'm glad Alan's there in person, our mutual vision of co-management of the park in the future. But of course, we need to address this issue. So we're in strong support.
Thank you, Mr. Wichman. And then finally, we have late testimony from Maddie Rutan, offering testimony in support. That's all the written testimony received on this measure. And anyone else would like to offer testimony on House Bill 1183? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to recess for decision making. Recess. Thank you so much. I appreciate your patience. We are reconvening the Joint Committee on Water and Land and Committee on Labor and Government Operations for our Tuesday, February 14th, 11:15 agenda for the purposes of decision making. Okay, members, on House Bill 203 relating to civil service. I think there was a lot of good discussion about this measure and whether or not it's needed, as well as the concerns about protections for employees who are civil service employees. So the recommendation is going to be to move this along for further discussion. We're going to defect the date June 30th, 3000. We're also going to note in the committee report a request for the department to come back to us to explain on these positions why they were not able to convert them in order to retain the current staff. And then we can share that information with the committee members as it becomes available, should this bill move forward into the legislative process. So recommendation is to pass a House Draft 1. Water Land members, comments, concerns? Okay, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on House Bill 203 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Chen? Aye. Representative Ganaden?
Aye.
Representative Hashem? Excused. Representative Morikawa?
Reservations.
Noting your reservations. Representative Takayama?
Aye.
Representative Souza?
Aye. Thank you, members. Turn over to Committee on Labor.
Thank you, Chair, for your comments and for the comments in the committee report. I do want to say that I have the same concerns as to why these positions have not been, I guess I want to see evidence that the attempt has been made to raise their pay under a non-exempt status. It seems like this has been a problem for a number of years. I just want to know a little bit more as this process goes forward. So it's a defective date. It'll come back if it passes through FIN. I'd like someone to reach out to at least give this committee a little more reassurance that efforts have been made and that these efforts have failed. That being said, same recommendation, but I will be voting with reservations on this. Vice Chair?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Members of the LGO Committee voting on House Bill 203, the recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair both vote with reservations. Representative Capella?
Reservations.
Thank you. Representative Martinez?
Reservations.
Reservations. Thank you. Representative Sayama?
Reservations.
Thank you. Representative Tam?
Reservations.
And Representative Alcos?
Reservations.
Thank you. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, members. Next, moving on to House Bill 1032 related to Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. Recommendation is to defect the date June 30th, 3000. I know this is a long way to go and there are some concerns that were noted in the committee, so we'll note them also for the committee report for the next committee discussion. Waterline members, any comments, questions? Okay, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on HB 1032 with amendments. Noting Representative Hashem is excused, are there any noes or reservations?
Reservations, please.
Noting reservations from Representative Morikawa
Reservations.
and Representative Ganaden. Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you.
So some similar concerns, but Chair's recommendation is the same, and I'll be voting aye. Vice Chair?
Okay, thank you, Chair. LGO members voting on House Bill 1032. Noting the presence of all members, anyone voting no or with reservations?
Reservations.
Thank you, Representative Capella.
Reservations.
Representative Tam noting your reservations as well. Anyone else?
Reservations.
Thank you, Representative Alcos. Anyone else? All other members vote aye. Your Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members.
Okay, last bit on our agenda, House Bill 1183 relating to state parks. Recommendation is to defect the date and move this out as a House Draft 1. Waterline members, any questions, comments? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1183 with amendments, noting Representative Hashem is excused, are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, the Chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Vice?
Yep, same recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on House Bill 1183, recommendation is to pass with amendments. Anyone voting no or with reservations? Chair, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned.